Well, a California mother faces jail time for, get this, letting her 4-year-old son play alone outside. Sonia Hendren was arrested for felony child neglect after a neighbor saw the boy by himself. He was in a playground about 120 feet from his front door in a gated community. Well, the neighbor called Child Protective Services and reported it, and now the mom faces all kinds of trouble. Joining us now, Lise Wheel, a Fox News legal analyst, and Bob Bianchi, criminal defense attorney and a former county prosecutor.
So I guess the days are gone where we could just go play outside and mom and dad say, you know, be back for dinner or else.
Yeah,
that's gone, obviously.
I enjoyed my childhood, and that's kind of how I spent it, but I guess it's illegal these days.
It is, and it's really kind of a rash. I found a case in Florida where a 7-year-old was allowed to play in a park, or a South Carolina mom was she allowed to play her kid, let her kid play when she was at McDonald's working, and they all got arrested. Look, I think there's so many things where we really do see bad child abuse, where things really are happening that are wrong. Those are the cases that need to be investigated. Bob and I were just talking here in the studio. We were just figuring out, you can see from one end to the other where that kid was, if you think about the distance. In a gated community, and she gets arrested for that?
Yeah, 40 yards away, basically, Bob.
Yeah, you know, John, as a head prosecutor, I wound up having all of these cases that would come in, and in the last 26 years, it seems like any mistake a parent makes, an accident, you can't be a human being if you're not absolutely perfect. They're now criminalizing the case. Now, Child Protective Services is more than capable of seeing whether or not there's a continuing danger to these children. But we in this country have to start getting back to the philosophy that the justice system, in the criminal justice system, is about taking people who represent a danger and criminalizing behavior. This is ridiculous. It's overreach and it's overkill.
Even the guy who called police said he didn't think she was going to get arrested. He thought she was going to get some kind of a warning or something.
Right, and I think people are so nervous now, CPS and everything, if they don't call the police, if they don't bring 911 in, then they're going to somehow be liable. And, you know, that's kind of the more litigious part of it. But just getting back to the kids and the fundamental nature of this, can't you look at it and say, look, that kid is really not being harmed, or is being harmed? At least look into it, as Bob said. But don't call the cops on her and pull her away. Putting her in jail, what good is that going to do to the kid?
What about prosecutorial discretion? I mean, can't the prosecutor say, look, this is a nothing case, let's let this woman go free?
And John, that's what we used to do all the time. But unfortunately, because we have many prosecutors who are getting into office that aren't that skilled and don't have a lot of background and experience,
or want to make a name for themselves.
Or want to make the name for themselves, whatever it may be. Their discretion, in my opinion, can become perverted in certain instances. Well, we have a case in Jersey right now where a person left their toddlers in a vehicle and then went Christmas shopping. That can be a completely different case in terms of the endangerment to the child. But we need to stop criminalizing parental acts where maybe a parent leaves a kid in a car accidentally and things like this. You have to use the rule of reason when you're a prosecutor and go after only those people who represent a continuing danger. That's not this family. This is ridiculous.
Mom's facing minimum 30 days in jail, possibly 3 months in jail. Unbelievable to me. Let's talk about another case. The prosecutor in the Jody Arias murder trial now says he thinks a juror fell head over heels in love with Jody during the court proceedings, and that may have affected this case, and he's written a book about it.
You know, legally, he's probably fine to have written the book. I mean, I just think ethically, to me, it doesn't seem right because the case is still on appeal. Now, he may not be involved in the case anymore going forward, and that's why he can get through the legal loophole of writing this book. But what is it about a prosecutor that so far, when we just barely stopped talking about this case and stopped with the third go around of it, and now he's writing a book about it?
Yeah, you're talking about Juan Martinez. He became a famous, sort of a well-known figure in people's homes just because he was on the evening news every night.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would necessarily describe it as unethical, but I would say, in my opinion, it's unprofessional. Again, what we are seeing is people capitalizing on these cases and writing these books. And I can assure you, John, what's going to happen is that the defense attorneys, because there was a conviction of Jody Arias in the guilt phase of this case, are going to be scouring that book, looking for details, for example, evidence that wasn't turned over to them or inappropriate prosecutorial misconduct. And I bet you, I'm guaranteeing it will be part of the appeal.
Well, and by the way, what he already gave that away, really, which is that this one juror was apparently falling in love with Jody Arias, which does not surprise me, by the way. Jurors and people, you know, Scott Peterson, for example, I covered that in California years ago. He was getting women that were just wanted to, you know, marry him and be with him and all this stuff. It's sort of the bad girl, bad boy syndrome.
Yeah, she's talking about the foreman of the jury, 71 years old, a guy who voted against the death penalty in one of the hung juries. Apparently, well, the prosecutor says he had a crush on Jody, and that's why he wouldn't vote for the death penalty.
Look, I don't know if those facts are accurate, but let's be honest. We both tried cases, and we tried high-profile murder cases. We all want the jury to like us, and we want the jury to like our clients. So, I mean, that's just a human factor, a human dynamic that goes into it. However, the judge tells them, put those personal feelings aside, just discuss this case on the facts and the law. There's nothing here to indicate, in my opinion, it's what we would call redlining in the system. They lost the death penalty conviction, and this is a way to say, here's the reason why. I don't buy it, and there's certainly no evidence that it's going to do nothing to change the circumstances of this case.
Well, this 71-year-old jury foreman denied that he had any inappropriate feelings for the defendant. We'll keep an eye on it, let you know what happens. Bob Bianchi, Lee Wheel, thank you.
Thanks.